Sword Art Online, one of the most talked about anime of this decade. You may love it, you may hate it. However, I on the other hand love it to death. SAO holds a very special place in my heart. With that said, I want to share why SAO is amazing and deserves more praise. So welcome everyone to the best things about SAO. Number 8. The gaming aspect. It should come as no surprise that SAO involves gaming pretty heavily. SAO focuses mainly on online interactions between its players. The games, Sword Art Online, Alfheim Online, and Gun Gale Online are all based on VR MMO RPGs, virtual reality massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Oh boy, is that a tongue twister. SAO, ALO, and GGO all have drastically different styles and gameplay elements from each other. As a fellow gamer myself, it's fun to watch Kirito's adventure in each world because, in a way, I could relate to that new feeling of traveling in a new place with all new people in a community, as well as gameplay features. Oh, and the music. Overall, if you love gaming, then SAO is the anime for you. Number 7. The OST, Original Soundtrack. I know this can be very subjective, but you gotta admit, SAO has one of the best original soundtracks ever. I can listen to each piece of music on walks and feel like I'm walking in a new certain game world. Each piece of music makes each scene feel even more important and impactful. Some memorable examples are Kirito's attempt at the World Tree fighting the Guardians, Yujiro vs. Broccoli, and Asuna vs. Yuki. I could list a lot more, but we'll be here all day. I'll just list some of my favorites down below in case you want to check them out. Number 5. The emotional scenes. Sword Art Online has very emotional scenes that could break your heart. This does contain spoilers for future arcs, so if you have not watched SAO, I highly encourage you to watch the series first. I'll put a timestamp here for you in case you decide to skip. Also, I would like to credit SAO Winky because they can put it better into words than I ever could. Yuki hesitated when Asuna expressed a desire to know her better. Yuki called Asuna as her older sister again. When Asuna pointed it out, Yuki began crying, logged out without a word. 3 days later, on January 11th, Yuki met Asuna at the General Hospital, where Yuki was being treated. On her request, the doctor, sorry, I forgot the name, allowed Asuna to borrow the neighboring room, which doctor usually used to log in to talk to Yuki. After Asuna arrived at the spot of their first meeting in ALO, Yuki confessed that she was very happy that Asuna had found her. Yuki revealed to her how the Sleeping Knights, the guild, had met and why they were really trying to engrave their names on the monument of the swordsman. At the end of their conversation, when Asuna asked Yuki what places she'd like to visit, Yuki shared her wish to see a real school. On January 12th, through a bidirectional communication probe made by Kazuto, aka Kirito, Yuki was able to enjoy the school at the Sword Art Online Survival School, and was able to see her old home once more before it was torn down. Yuki, by talking to Asuna, was able to inspire her to help her mother see her point of view. On March 29th, 2026, Yuki's condition suddenly deteriorated, and Asuna rushed to the hospital, learning that Yuki's death was close at hand. Yuki logged onto ALO one last time to pass on her original sword skill to Asuna. Yuki passed away peacefully in Asuna's arms, surrounded by her friends, the Sleeping Knights, Asuna's other friends, and many other players who came to pay tribute to the Absolute Sword. The next emotional scene I would like to discuss is Yujio's death scene. Yujiro immediately went to the dying Cardinal and convinced her to transform him into a being capable of fighting the sword golem. Cardinal expended the last of her energy to fuse him, the Blue Rose Sword, and Alice's extracted memories, in the form of a crystal hidden in the decoration of the chamber's ceiling, into a giant sentient sword. In this form, Yujiro easily destroyed the golem, but despite Kirito's warning to not act rashly, Yujiro turned towards Quinella at the attempt to kill her. He failed, and the giant sentient sword was split into two, but not before managing to destroy Quinella's weapon and severing her entire right arm. As the sword morphed back into Yujiro, Kirito was horrified at the sight of his friend lying on the floor, his body bisected at the waist. Yujiro poured his dying soul onto the broken sword, transforming it into the Red Rose Sword, which Kirito used, along with his black sword, the Night Sky Blade, to finally finish off Quinella. Yujiro and a heartbroken Kirito shared one last conversation, and as Kirito finally recalls his memories of Yujiro and Alice during his first dive into the underworld, Yujiro succumbed to his wounds and passed away in Kirito's arms. Personally, this one hurt me the most, but both Kirito and Asuna had friends who died in their arms, and it's so sad to see that. Since this section's already long, I'm just going to end this section right here. But don't forget, SAO has a bunch of memorable sad scenes. Number 4, the animation. SAO has gorgeous animation. Honestly, you could pause at almost any second during the anime, and you could use it as wallpaper. Number 3, Asuna. Hold up. I know what you're going to say. Asuna's a damsel. She was only good in the Aincrad arc. Asuna's helpless. You would only think that if you didn't watch SAO, or simply you heard someone who didn't watch say the same thing. Or perhaps you actually did watch and came to this conclusion yourself. But simply, Asuna is none of these, and that's why she's so amazing. Let me explain why Asuna is amazing. Asuna is a strong heroine who never gives up even if things look hopeless. During the first month of SAO, she met Kirito, and when he met her, she was a shy, quiet person who kept to herself mostly. However, unlike most people in the town at beginnings, Asuna didn't want to sit around all day and have her brain rot away. She wanted to fight and stay the way she was until the very end. After the first floor boss was defeated, Kirito told her that she should join a guild, and if the opportunity ever came up, to just take it. Asuna took his advice, and after a few months, she joined the most popular guild, Knights of the Blood Oath. On the outside, Asuna was seen as fearless, tough, and popular. However, on the inside, it was completely different. At night, Asuna would normally cry herself to sleep, and at times, she forgot what she was truly fighting for in this world. That's until she saw Kirito taking a nap outside, and seeing this made her mad. Kirito told her that it was Aincrad's nicest day, and it would be a waste to train on such a beautiful day. Originally, Asuna hated being trapped in the virtual world, believing the more they were trapped in it was another day lost in the real world, until she was inspired by Kirito, showing her life could still be enjoyed. This experience quickly changed their relationship into something more positive, especially since they had a very stained relationship in the beginning, as both had different perspectives of being trapped in SAO. At this point, about a year and a half have passed since both Asuna and Kirito met, and she started falling in love with him. However, everything wasn't all perfect for Asuna. A few months later, Asuna was assigned a personal bodyguard and had no decision on the matter. At this point, Asuna wanted to leave the Knights of the Blood Oath, but couldn't because she was one of the most powerful players. And so, Kirito tries to step in and has a duel with the commander, Heathcliff. Kirito fights for her because it was an opportunity granted by the commander, but the catch was, if he loses, then he would have to join the guild. Kirito loses the fight and joins Knights of the Blood Oath. Fast forward a day later, Kirito was in serious danger and was on the verge of getting killed by Corridil. Asuna saw this a few moments before or after she saw Godfrey die and ran past the system's limits, foreshadowing Incarnation, which is a very major plot point in the future SAO arcs, by the way, and managed to get to the scene on time to save Kirito. When Asuna arrived at the scene, she knocked Corridil away with a burst of speed, and Kirito was lying there with 1 HP left and healed him with a healing crystal. Afterwards, Asuna continued to fight Corridil, easily overpowering him. However, as his HP was depleting, he then fooled Asuna into lowering her guard by pleading for his life. Asuna was about to kill him with one last hit, but stopped in shock. Then afterwards, he knocked the sword out of her hand, and then Kirito came to save her and finished them off. What I liked most about Asuna and Kirito's relationship is they're always saving each other from harm. Even during the last fight of Aincrad, she sacrificed herself so Kirito could clear the game and set everyone free. Or so we thought. After SAO was cleared, there was a number of players who were still in their coma state, including Asuna. Asuna was then transported to a new game called Alfheim Online. At this point, people think Asuna was a damsel because she was helpless and needed to be saved by Kirito. On an isolated level, sure, but it's not the case overall. You gotta realize Asuna's situation. She's in a game world trapped under Sugo's influence, had absolutely no power, yet she still managed to break free from her cage. And what does she do, you might ask? She goes to a system console and almost managed to press the log out button to log everyone out until she was found and brought back to her cage. Right before she was captured, she grabbed the card connected to the system console and snagged it. She saved it and kept it close to her until she hears a familiar voice, and she drops it down because she feels Kirito is somewhere nearby. Because of this, Asuna has a role in her own rescue, and if it wasn't for Asuna's quick thinking, Kirito would have never been able to reach her. So it wasn't like she did absolutely nothing and waited. It goes to show, even the strongest people need help sometimes, and you can't always do everything on your own. Asuna teaches good life lessons, and I learned a lot from her as a character. At this point, I would bring up even more examples, but I think you guys get my point. Asuna is a strong swordswoman who should never be messed with. And I didn't even take into account her role in Mother's Rosario and in Alicization. She is an incredible badass in those arcs. Number 2. Differences between game worlds. Sword Art Online, Alfheim Online, and Gun Gale Online are all VR MMO RPGs, but with a twist that makes them very different from each other. SAO has more of a focus towards realism and sword skills rather than typical fantasy RPG elements such as magic because it was Kaiba's vision for the game. Kaiba wanted SAO to feel as real to the player as much as possible. That's why he forced all the players to play as what they would look like IRL, with the only exception changing hair color. ALO has similar gameplay elements but with drastic changes. Unlike SAO, ALO has magic and fairy races which help out in different situations. For example, Spriggans are masters of illusion magic and excel in treasure hunting. The Undines are masters of healing and water magic. Salamanders tend to be the strongest in terms of attack power and masters of fire magic. Katses are skilled beast tamers with best eyesight and high speeds. Now, you may say that kind of gameplay must suck if you could only excel in only a few aspects, but that's not the case at all. For example, Asuna is an Undine, but she can still play as a very effective DPS player, so it's not like she's only forced to be a healer. All races just have equal access to whatever role they want to play. Healer, DPS, tank, it's all up to the player regardless of race. The main reason why I decided to bring this point up is because people like Mother's Basement tend to spread misinformation about the series, and he just thinks that since you pick a race, you're pretty much stuck with whatever it gives you, but that's really not the case at all. So don't really listen to Mother's Basement. Now, as for GGO, this game is the most different because of the different genre the game is based on. Unlike SAO and ALO, GGO is a shooting genre game with its own set of differences. GGO was created with the help of the free VR MMO game development support package called The Seed. GGO right off the bat sets the atmosphere in a post-apocalyptic world and is a game filled with all sorts of different guns. The basis of the gameplay is to increase your avatar's level, in which allows the player to fully choose on how to build their avatar. Some examples of stats are AGI type, which increases the player's abilities, and the player's fire speed. Dex narrows the area of the bullet circle to increase accuracy. That's to name just a couple of examples. Now, speaking of bullet circles, its primary function is to show the range in which the bullet will land. Most ideal state is for the bullet circle to be small, so it's more likely for the bullet to hit the opponent, or wherever you're trying to aim. Ways to shrink the circle is getting closer to the opponent or staying calm. When you put your finger on the trigger, that's when the bullet line appears, and it's self-explanatory, but just in case, I'll explain. The bullet line shows exactly where the bullet will land, and at first it may sound stupid to show where the bullet line will land, but not many people can dodge rapid bullets coming at them all at once, so it's a system assist. All three VR games are so cool and filled with so many different mechanics, which I love so much. All would be cool to play one day, but hey, that's me hoping. Number 1. Kirito's character development. This part of the video has taken me the longest to figure out, but not because it's hard to come up with, but simply I wanted to explain Kirito's character development the best way I humanly can. For the past few years, people like to make the claim that Kirito is a flat character with no motives outside the main plot, and is a Gary Stu who gets all the ladies, and personally, I never really understood how that's the case. Honestly, I feel like people just joined the hate bandwagon and already went into this anime with a negative mindset, ready to just hate on SAO without giving it a fair chance. Let me explain Kirito's character development and why it's my favorite part about the entire SAO series. Kirito in the Aincrad arc spent most of his time fighting alone and carried the title Black Swordsman because of all the lives he couldn't save. Kirito used video games as a way to cope with the fact that he was adopted into a family, and for a long time he didn't feel like he belonged there. He figured that no one knows anything about anyone in MMORPGs, so he dove right in. Since Kirito started to drift further away from his family, this caused his relationship with his cousin Sugaha to be non-existent. In Aincrad, all Kirito thought about was how he was going to survive, and to him nothing else mattered. But the people who we met in SAO completely changed his outlook on everything. Some notable people who helped Kirito in SAO were Klein, Sachi, Yui, Silica, Lisbeth, and especially Asuna. Overall, Kirito learned to open up to his friends and family, and this leads perfectly into the Fairy Dance arc. In the Fairy Dance arc, right at the beginning, you could automatically tell Kirito matured compared to his time in SAO. A good example is when Kirito woke up after finally beating the death game, and he wanted to make amends for how he treated his cousin Sugaha. He wanted to try and close the gap that had grown between them over the last couple of years. While trying to be a bigger man and own up to his previous mistakes, Kirito needed to rescue Asuna from ALO. Fast forward a bit later, when he lost against the fight at the World Tree, he realized that everything in the game was a lie. nothing more than a bunch of skills and stats. This moment taught him that he can't do everything on his own. It's okay to ask for help. This way of thinking leads perfectly into the Phantom Bullet arc. In the Phantom Bullet arc, Kirito goes through PTSD because of all the people he killed back in SAO. Another character named Sinon, who was very prominent in this arc, also went through a similar trauma as a kid. Sinon was in a bank during a robbery, and as the gunman accidentally dropped his gun, Sinon took it and shot him dead. This experience gave Sinon very serious PTSD, probably more so than Kirito himself. But going back to Kirito, he was going to dive into GGO, and Nurse Aki noticed something wrong, so she decided to axe him. During their talk, Kirito had a major breakdown, saying he didn't deserve to find any peace, and Nurse Aki told him something that really helped him in the long run. You should consider the lives you did save rather than the ones you killed. You killed somebody only because you were trying to protect someone else. When Kirito heard this, it made him realize that he needs to acknowledge both sides, and it really helped him move on. He didn't move on entirely, but it made him realize he can move away from this. I would also like to point out the contrasts between Kirito and Sinon in the Phantom Bullet arc. Kirito was trying to help Sinon, and it was like Kirito was talking to his previous self. It's something not a lot of people realize. Sinon acted mostly like how Kirito did back when he was trapped in SAO. Kirito helped her move on from her trauma. This is some impressive character growth, and one of my favorite moments in the entire SAO series. And with that, everyone, I would like to end this video off. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll try to make my next video as soon as possible. So I hope you all have a great day, and don't forget, make it a great day.